Hello and welcome to Cyber Risk Management in Practice. In this video, we're entering the next phase of the risk management process, risk treatment, where the work starts to shift from understanding risks to actually managing them. By this point, you've built a strong foundation. You've gathered meaningful context, identified and analyzed the risks that matter, and characterized them in relation to your organization's risk appetite and priorities. Now, it's time to decide what to do about them. Risk treatment isn't just about security controls. It's about making informed decisions about how the organization will respond to each risk based on what the risk means in its specific context. And here's where that context really matters. There is no single right way to treat a cyber risk. The best option depends on your goals, your environment, your capabilities, and your current state of maturity. That's why treatment isn't just an operational step, it's a strategic one. This is where risk management starts influencing resource allocation, leadership decisions, and long term planning. In the book, we frame this transition clearly. Assessment gives you visibility, treatment moves you forward. Now that we're in the risk treatment phase, the next step is to choose how the organization will respond to each risk you've assessed. In the book, we walk through four core treatment strategies that give structure to those decisions: avoid, mitigate, transfer, and accept. Each of these options is valid, depending on the risk, the environment, and what the organization is trying to achieve. Let's start with avoidance. This means changing or stopping the activity that creates the risk altogether. For example, deciding not to launch a particular service because it introduces too much exposure, or shifting away from a system that can't be secured properly. Avoidance is the cleanest option in terms of risk, but not always realistic. The trade off might be lost revenue, opportunity, or operational disruption, so it needs to be considered carefully and tied to business priorities. Next is mitigation, the most common strategy in cybersecurity. Mitigation involves reducing either the likelihood or the impact of a risk by applying controls, changing processes, or improving architecture. The goal isn't to eliminate risk entirely, it's to bring it to a level that aligns with your appetite and capacity. Mitigation is where most of your technical and procedural controls come into play. Firewalls, access management, segmentation, monitoring, response plans, these all support mitigation. The third strategy is transfer. This means shifting part of the risk to a third party. That could be through contracts, insurance, or outsourcing specific functions. But transfer doesn't mean the risk disappears. It just means that the consequences or responsibilities are shared or passed on. You still need to manage the relationship and ensure that the third party is equipped to handle their part. And finally, there's acceptance. This applies when a risk falls within the organization's appetite or when treatment isn't feasible at the moment. Acceptance must be intentional. It should be documented, supported by analysis, and approved by the right level of authority. The important thing is that every risk should have a treatment strategy, even if that strategy is to accept it. And the decision should always be grounded in the risk's relevance to the business, not just its technical characteristics. Once a treatment strategy is selected, whether it's mitigation, transfer, avoidance, or acceptance, there's one more concept that becomes central to the conversation: residual risk. Residual risk is what remains after you've done something about the original risk. Maybe you've reduced the likelihood. Maybe you've softened the impact. But in most cases, there's still some exposure left. That's what makes this step important. Someone has to decide whether what remains is acceptable, and that person needs to have the authority to make that call. This isn't a technical decision, it's a business decision. Risk acceptance is sometimes misunderstood. It's not what happens when you run out of options or budget. It's a conscious choice to live with a certain level of risk because it aligns with priorities, constraints, or strategic goals. That choice needs to be documented, visible, and reviewed periodically because acceptance isn't permanent. Risks evolve, conditions change. What felt manageable 6 months ago might not be acceptable today. And that's where we shift from thinking in straight lines to thinking in spirals. This work doesn't end with one assessment or one treatment plan. Instead, each cycle of risk management builds on the last. You reassess, learn, and improve layer by layer, decision by decision. Every treatment choice feeds into what comes next. It fuels maturity, creates space for better conversations, and helps the program grow in the direction the organization actually needs. At this point in the program, we've talked about treatment strategies, how to avoid, reduce, transfer, or accept risk based on what makes sense for the organization. But there's another layer that needs to be in place, no matter what strategy you choose. That's where the cybersecurity basics come in. These are the essential building blocks, the practices that make any risk treatment strategy work in a consistent, scalable way. Without these basics in place, even the best treatment plans can fall short. Mitigation becomes inconsistent, response becomes reactive, and security becomes harder to manage, especially as complexity grows. These basics aren't about chasing shiny tools or advanced techniques. They're about establishing the core capabilities that every organization, regardless of size or industry, needs to support cyber risk decisions. This foundation helps ensure that you actually know what systems and data you have. You can control who has access to them. You're keeping things updated and monitored, and you're ready to respond when something goes wrong. It also creates a common language between security teams, business units, and leadership. Instead of reacting to one-off issues, you're building a structure that supports clear risk conversations and measurable progress. Now it's time to walk through each of the 10 cybersecurity basics, or 11 if we count cyber risk management as one of them, so you can see how they fit together and where to focus next, based on your own environment and maturity. These are the practices that form the backbone of a functional, scalable risk treatment approach. They're the no-brainers every program must have. They're the fundamentals. However, I have to say they are not always easy to achieve or maintain. The things that, when missing, make it nearly impossible to manage cyber risk reliably. That's why we must pay special attention to them. Let's review them. 1. Technology and information inventories. It begins here, knowing what you have. That means systems, applications, devices, data flows, vendors, and services. Too many organizations still operate without a complete inventory or with lists that are outdated or scattered. This creates confusion, slows down response, and makes risk assessments unreliable. You can't evaluate or treat risk if you don't know what's in play. This basic gives you visibility, supports prioritization, and sets the stage for everything else. 2. Identity and access control. This one is about who can do what and whether that access is still appropriate. It's more than just provisioning accounts. It includes role-based access, multi-factor authentication, lifecycle management, and making sure access is revoked promptly when someone changes roles or leaves. This basic also touches on non-human identities, like service accounts or automation credentials, which are often overlooked but can be just as risky. Good identity practices reduce exposure and make it harder for attackers or insiders to move freely once they're in. 3. Vulnerability in patch management. This is about keeping known issues from becoming avoidable incidents. Vulnerabilities are published all the time. Threat actors move fast. And organizations that delay patching, especially for critical systems, are often leaving the door wide open. But patch management isn't just about urgency. It's also about governance, knowing what to patch, when, how to test, and how to coordinate across teams. This basic gives you a structured way to reduce likelihood. It also supports better conversations about technical debt, exception handling, and business continuity. 4. Network security. Networks still matter, especially in complex environments or hybrid models. This basic is about how systems communicate and how you control that flow. Segmentation, firewall rules, inbound and outbound filtering, DNS controls, all of these help limit movement if something goes wrong. Network security isn't just about blocking threats at the perimeter. It's about building layers that slow attackers down, reduce blast radius, and give your team time to detect and respond. 5. Monitoring and detection. This is how you stay aware when things start to go wrong. It's not about collecting endless logs. It's about having the right visibility into systems, networks, and behaviors and knowing what to look for. This basic includes centralized logging, alert tuning, and integration across tools, so you're not just getting noise, but actual signals. Detection is one of the most powerful mitigation tools available, but it only works when it's connected to context and supported by people who know how to interpret what they see. 6. Incident response and recovery. This basic isn't just about having a policy or a binder on the shelf. It's about knowing what to do, who does it, when, and how when an incident happens. That means documented procedures, tested playbooks, and clearly assigned roles. It also includes how you recover, how quickly systems and data can be restored, and how communications are handled. This capability directly affects impact. An incident response plan won't stop every breach, but it can absolutely reduce the damage and build credibility with regulators, customers, and internal stakeholders. 7. Physical security. Even in highly digital environments, the physical world still matters. This includes server rooms, data centers, office spaces, and even home environments for remote teams. Think locked doors, badge access, surveillance, secure disposal, and visitor protocols. And for some industries like healthcare, energy, or manufacturing, physical security is deeply intertwined with cyber risk. It doesn't need to be complex, but it does need to be considered. 8. Endpoint protection. Devices are everywhere, and attackers know it. This basic is about protecting laptops, desktops, mobile devices, and other endpoints that access your systems and data. That includes antivirus, encryption, remote wipe capabilities, secure configuration, and centralized management. It also includes visibility, knowing what's running on those devices, and being able to respond if something suspicious shows up. Endpoints are often the front door. This is where phishing, malware, and user error most often show up, which makes this basic one of the most critical to get right. 9. Application protection. Applications, especially those exposed to the internet, are a high-value target. Protecting them means thinking about how they're developed, tested, deployed, and maintained. It includes secure coding practices, vulnerability testing, configuration management, and ensuring updates are applied consistently. This applies to both in-house and third-party applications. And as software supply chains become more complex, this basic becomes even more important. 10. Awareness and training. This final basic ties everything together because even the best designed controls can be bypassed by a simple mistake or a well-crafted phishing email. Awareness and training isn't just about annual videos or checkbox compliance. It's about building behavioral muscle across the organization, helping people, from end users to executives, understand what's expected of them, what to watch for, and how to respond. And it's ongoing. You're not trying to make everyone a security expert. You're trying to make security part of how people think and work every day. Together, these 10 basics and the mindset behind them form the foundation for sustainable, practical cyber risk treatment. They support mitigation. They reduce the burden of response. And they help organizations grow their programs with intention, not just reaction. If this approach resonates with you, there's a lot more discussed in the book. Find your copy and embark on this journey with me, improving your cyber risk management program step by step with a practical approach.